Today is just exactly the same as before, except there's words around the problem. In the end, they're going to have to give you a starting value, and that's called U1. So everybody off to the side, please write this. U1 start value. Just write start val. That's the start value. I didn't mean for there to be no space. And I admit, might as well finish it. 2 letters isn't worth abbreviating. View 1 is the start value. Okay, and then do you get that they're either arithmetic? This would be worth abbreviating. Versus they're geometric. How do you tell again? Noah, describe how you would tell if something was arithmetic or geometric. Yep. If it's multiplying each time, it must be geometric. All right. The next thing you got to figure out is this a S sub 20, which would mean sum, or U sub 20 kind of question, which would mean the 20th term? Sometimes they're going to ask you, what's the 20th number in this list? Like, Bob has been mowing lawns. He mowed 1 lawn the first day, 2 lawns the second day, 4 lawns the third day, 8 lawns the 4th day. How many will he mow on the 10th day? That's one of these kind of questions. If it's how many lawns did he mow total, that's that one. Okay, so if you want an S sub something, you're doing a sum. That's adding them all up. All right, underneath the add kind, there's something called a D. What the heck is the D? Let's put it up here. What's D? Dalmatians?
Yes.
No. D is the difference. That's on an add problem. Like if I said from 2 to 6, what's the difference? 4. It's just like what you're adding or subtracting. Then there's an R in some of these formulas. You know what R stands for? Yes, rate or ratio. Technically it's ratio, but I'd be totally fine with you saying that it's the rate. So if I tell you a problem from the real world, Jenny starts making pizzas because she wants to make that her job. She wants to make pizzas for a living. She's pretty good at it, so she starts a store, and she's able to sell 2 pizzas her first week, 3 pizzas the next week, 4 pizzas the next week. Well, then you'd start making a list. 2, 3, 4, and then you'd have to ask yourself, is that arithmetic or geometric? Dashel?
I think it's arithmetic.
Good. What's the rate? Now, if people participate, that's cool, and then I don't have to call on people. Okay, but if you guys are just going to sit there silently, I know most of you actually know the answer, but I got to keep asking individuals if you weren't going to fill in the answers. So what's the rate here? If you raise your hand, though, just don't blurt it out. Otherwise, one person might blurt out all the answers. That'd be bad. So what's the rate here? Well, there isn't a rate. What is the 1? It's not a rate, though.
Different.
It's a difference. Okay. So this one would start with 2. You'd have a difference of 1. 2, 3, 4. If I was the pizzas one, she made 2 pizzas the first week, 3 pizzas the next week, 4 the next week. We could ask, how many pizzas does she make in week 6? And you wouldn't just find, you got to think, this is U1, this is U2, this is U3. You want U sub 6? You probably... Yeah, you could do that too. That would be that'd be S sub 360. Oh, 365 in a year, sorry. This assumes she's working on Christmas, which is kind of sad, but... Well, it'd be S sub 3, and you'd probably take a few holidays off, right? So maybe it'd be S sub 350. And that may take 15 days off throughout the year. That's probably more realistic. But that would be all of the pizzas added up because it's an S. Sum of. All right, now grab your sheet. Everybody look at your sheet. And I'm going to ask you to figure out what formula I mean. And all I need you to do literally is to point at it with a pencil or a pen. Point at the right formula on your sheet. Okay? So I don't even want to make you get a pencil or pen out because most of you are on an iPad, so you don't even have something to point with. Just use your finger. It's fine. Or your stylus if you're using a stylus. Whatever. So get ready to point at the right formula. Which formula should I use if I have 6 llamas? Don't point yet, because you can't tell yet. And I figure out that I can get them, by breeding them, I can get them to grow at 80% per year. Is that arithmetic or geometric? That should be the first thing you should be thinking about. If it's growing at 80% a year, does it feel like I'm adding something each time, or does it feel like I'm multiplying by something each time? All right, then my question will be, how many llamas total does she have at the end of 5 years? All right, figure out which formula that is. How many of you... Okay, actually, first, I want you to talk about it. So, I'm going to use Dice of Destiny to call on different people. So, I'm going to be asking you things like, what's use of 1? What's D? Or maybe it's an R. And which formula we should use. All right, row 2, person 4. Karima, that's you. Tell me whether you think this is arithmetic or geometric.
Geometric.
Because why? Okay, and it's adding or multiplying is really the key. Did you feel like you were adding the 80% or multiplying by like 1.8? You're multiplying by 1.8. That's why it's geometric. That was a geometric one. All right, what was u sub 1, Victoria?
6.
Yep. So it's a geometric and the u sub 1 is 6. Now which formula should you use? After 5 years, how many llamas does she have? I want you to point at it, and I'm going to walk around and see if you're pointing at the right thing. Almost everybody was pointing at the geometric one for s sub n, which is a sum. And that would be u1 r to the n minus 1 all over r minus 1. Now, what was our u sub 1? Christian, you remember it? 6. 6 goes here. Oops, I got to change colors. 6 goes here. Our r to the n. Riker, what's our rate?
0.8.
If I multiply by 0.8, it's going to shrink.
Oh, I mean 1.8.
1.8, good. To the n? Zach, you know which one n is?
So,
Which one of these is n? Hint, n stands for number of.
5.
Yep, it's the 5. That's our number of years, so that's 5. And then r was already 1.8, so there it is. Now, challenge is, can you put that in a calculator? This is the part where I'm going to pause, and some people are going to have to come up and trade me a calculator for something like a cell phone or keys or whatever. Pausing. So I'm starting to type it in. You know what I'd start with? 1.8 to the 5th. That's what I'd start with. Because I know how the calculator often will mess things up if I'm not careful. I'm going to do the power first, because in the whole, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you go in the parentheses and then you do exponents. That's what it is, 1.8 to the 5th. I get an answer for that, and I just realized I typed it wrong. 1.8 to the 5th. And that's 18.89, and a bunch of decimals, and I don't have to round it. Then I subtract 1 from it. So now I'm going to go minus 1. Now I get 17.89. Then I times it by 6. And then I get 107-ish. And then I divide by, I can do that in my head. 1.8 minus 1. Like, I don't have to type that, right? If I was going to type it, I better put it in parentheses. But I can do that in my head. 1.8 minus 1 is just 0.8. And I got 134. Raise your hand if you got 134 and some decimal. Okay, cool. Then you did it right. If you didn't get 134, figure out what you're doing wrong, because it's going to really goof you up on this test if you're not able to get 134. Okay, so it's word problems. So notice, I'm just going to tell you a story for this next one. And I want you to figure out which formula we should be doing. All right. I look at this pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid, this is like, I'm on this vacation, and this is like the Aztec pyramids, you know? And I count up, on the bottom row, there's 150 blocks across the bottom row. And then there's 120 blocks in this row. Now, from just two numbers, you can't tell. But if I give you the third number, you'll be able to tell if I've multiplied by something or if I'm adding or subtracting something. There's 90 in that row. Okay. So, my question is, I can't quite see the top row, but I want to know how many total blocks there are. Which formula should you use to figure out how many total blocks there are? This is a little bit like the pyramid problem. You know, people are still trying to figure out how they built those pyramids in Egypt. And the math behind that is kind of insane. There's over 2 million blocks in the Great Pyramid. 2 million blocks. And some of the blocks are like the size of this room. And they are insanely heavy.
Aliens.
And there is a question of whether they had help from somebody, because it's not just, I get I could make a giant thing with blocks, but being so perfectly precise as they were, that they stacked on top of each other perfectly to make it that tall and perfect, man, that's hard to do. And then when you find out that every corner of the pyramid points in exactly the right direction to be pointing north, south, east, and west, and not just that, but the height of the pyramid, like divided by the base of the pyramid, comes out to these crazy numbers that are like exactly related to how big the earth is. How could the people living in Egypt know how big the earth was? So we don't know exactly how they did it, but it's crazy. So anyway, this problem is obviously not the Great Pyramid problem, but I just wanted you to know there are some challenges in the real world we can't figure out. We don't know how they did that. Like, if we had to start building it today, I bet you seriously, it would take us a long time, like maybe hundreds of years to build a pyramid like that perfectly. You'd think that we'd have so much better machines and stuff now, but we don't know how they did it. Okay, so anyway.
Aliens, time travel, one of those.
It could be both. All right, did you know then that this was an add them all up kind of question, and are you using an S sub formula? Good. You should be using an S sub formula. So that narrows it down. There's only 3 on the sheet. Did this imply infinity? Nope, so that's out. Then it's either the S sub formula for arithmetic or geometric, and what kind was this? Were we adding each time? Yeah, it's arithmetic. It was actually subtracting each time, but this one was arithmetic. So if you find the arithmetic formula has an S in it, you're on the right track, and this is what it says. N over 2, U1 plus N minus 1 times D. All right, now go ahead and do that. Take a minute, put in all the right numbers, use your calculator, get the answer, and then one of the things I like about this calculator thing is you can just hold it up and show it to either me or the kid next to you. Okay, so I know some of you are going to do something in your head, that's cool, but get the answer in the calculator, because reading it off your iPad, a lot of your handwriting is worse than mine, so hard to read your handwriting, but I can read the calculator. Question.
What's N?
What is N? I can see it. you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of this sphere. So there's just 4 levels. That's it. Yes,
Is U sub 1/150?
it is. This was our first number we were given, and that is U sub 1. Our number of levels, the number of numbers we would have to add, we don't know what the top one is, but our number of levels was n, and that was, how many levels was there? 4, so that's a 4. U sub 1 is 150. N minus 1 times d. What the heck is d? Yeah, it was subtracting 30 each time, so you are correct. It's a negative 30, and this is a little weird. It's multiplying by negative 30, because d is being multiplied by n minus 1. Now, can you put that in your calculator? I'm going to check it myself. Let's see what I would get. First thing I'd do is this. 4 minus 1, I'd do that in my head, and it'd be 3. And I go 3 times negative 30, and I can do that in my head. It's negative 90. 2 times 150 is 300. I can do all out of this in my head. And 4 divided by 2, that's 2. Look at this. I don't even need a calculator. 2 times 210, 420, I think. Did anybody else get 420? All right, cool. And the universe likes practical jokes, I think. I did not plan that to come out to 420. Okay, yes?
Why is the 90 negative?
Why is the 90 negative? Because this was 3 times negative 30 because we were going down 30 each time. It was subtracting 30 blocks each time. Okay? All right, so any questions? All right, let's actually do one of the problems from the notes today. And I think you got the idea. We're looking for, is it arithmetic? Is it geometric? And what's the starting number? And all that kind of stuff. You decided to have a Mountain Dew at lunch. Mountain Dew contains 77 grams of sugar. Your kidneys are able to filter out 30% of that sugar in one day. Create a recursive formula. A formula, that's this stuff. U1 equals UN equals UN minus 1. That's how you write all your formulas. So what was U sub 1? That's what you started with. What did you start with? 77 grams of sugar. And now, when it says you're going to filter out 30% of that sugar in one day, it sounds a little bit like subtracting, but I'm going to tell you, it's not subtracting. It's multiplying by a decimal, and the decimal isn't 0.3. If you're going to filter out 30%, you would multiply by 1 minus 0.3. Same as 0.7, I heard somebody say. That's right. Do you get how I figured out that this was a multiply by 0.7 or 1 minus 0.3? And I started with 77. All you really need is what did you start with and what did you multiply or add or subtract, and it goes in there. Okay. Now it wants day 3. Does that sound like a, no, 9, sorry. Does that sound like a sum, or does that sound like I want the 9th term? Do they want all of the days added up? Then it's not a sum. Sum would be if all the days added up. This is a U sub 9 question. So look on your sheet. Do you think it's a, well, it's a U sub. We know it's either arithmetic or geometric then, and I'll know which formula to use. So, Veda, was this a arithmetic or a geometric? Geometric, because we're timesing by that 0.7. And so I'm going to use this formula. U1 times R to the n minus 1. Now, first challenge, what formula do I use? Second challenge, what number should I stick in the formula? Third challenge, can I put it in the calculator? All right, so U1 is 77, that's pretty easy. Times R, that's 0.7, or 1 minus 0.3, to the n minus 1. Ooh, the n, that's always one of the hardest ones. What was the number we cared about? The 9th day. So 9 minus 1. And now I just put that in a calculator. I'm going to do some in my head. Like, nobody's going to take 9 minus 1, I hope. You're just going to get an 8. And then I do the power first. 0.7 to the 8th. Times it by 77. Who beat me to 4.4? Raise your hand if you had 4.4. Not many people. I'm a little scared. Am I doing this wrong? I'm going to try that again. 0.7 to the 8th. Right? 0.7 to the 8th. And then times it by 77. 4.43. Anybody got 4.43? Okay, good. All right. The hard part here is figure out which formula to use. Then the next hard part is what numbers go in the formula. So let's talk about this one. Create a recursive formula right away. I think this. U1 equals UN equals UN minus 1. Everybody go ahead and write that down and then fill in the little blanks. Kelsey had borrowed $4,300 from her parents. They have told her she needs to pay them back $115 a month until she pays it all back. It sounds to me like not many parents would just say, sure, here's $4,300. But I could see a real life scenario where you steal, because you didn't tell them you were asking to borrow it, you like steal the Forerunner and you go smash it up, and like insurance, after the insurance costs, it costs $4,000 to fix this thing. And they're like, okay, Kelsey, you're paying us back $115 a month until you get it all paid back, because you basically trashed my car. You didn't ask to borrow it. It wasn't covered by insurance, and all this money, I know you don't have $4,300, but you're paying us $115 a month. Okay, so what's U1? Victoria, what's U sub 1?
4,000.
Yeah, 4,300. Okay. Now, are we adding or subtracting? We're going to subtract how much?
115.
115. So we go minus 115. And we want to keep on going and see how much she owes. Do you get at the beginning? She owes 4,300, so that's like U sub 1. After the first month goes by, that'll be in month 2 with U sub 2. She will owe, well, 4,300 minus 115. 4,300 minus, she's paid back 115 bucks. And it's 4,185. It's going to take forever to get this paid back. But that's real life. You do dumb things, you win stupid prizes. Sometimes people make the dumb mistake of driving drunk and they get caught, and it's like a ticket of holy crap. It's like $2,000 ticket. You lose your license. Then you have to pay extra for your insurance because your insurance rates go bananas. And it could seriously cost you $4,000, even if you didn't have an accident. You just got caught driving drunk. So that's the kind of thing where all of a sudden you could have this huge, nasty amount to pay back to parents because it costs tons of money because of your dumb mistake. All right, so 3 years, careful, 3 years is not U sub 3. It's U sub 36. So they really want U sub 36. So how the heck do I figure out U sub 36? I'm going to go on my sheet and look for something that looks like a U sub. There's only 2. Is arithmetic or geometric? Are we doing arithmetic or geometric? 115, 115, 115, 115. Arithmetic. Okay, so this is arithmetic. And here's the formula. U sub n will be U sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Did you choose the right formula like me? How many of you knew it was going to be arithmetic? All right, good. So Nora, to finish this off, I need to know, what's the number we care about here? No, U sub n, the number, the n. 36. And again, it was a word problem, and I could see a kid thinking it was 3, but no, that was 3 years, which is 36 months. Now I need u sub 1. Spencer, what's u sub 1? It's the very beginning of the problem. Hint, it's right there. 4,300. Okay. Plus n minus 1 times d. What's n again? Oh, I already had that. It's right here. Sometimes the formula has 2 n's in it. A lot of times it does. 36 minus 1 times d. Graham, what is the difference here each time? Over and over again. Minus 115. Very good. Remember that it's a negative because you're paying back. And now I go 35 times negative 115. 35 times negative 115. Oh, I paid back $4,000, but I still have some to pay left. That sucks. Plus 4,300, and my loan stands at 275. I still owe 275, but it's getting pretty close to paid off. 3 years later, it's almost paid off. Okay. These are harder, but it's mostly harder because it's hard to tell whether it's arithmetic or geometric. Once you know that, you just look on your sheet. And if it's a sum, you use the S sub things. And if it's a which term is it, you use the U sub things. All right, this is the part where I now actually start the homework for today. So everybody go to the homework. And it's weird today because there's a Schoology quiz, but it's just where you type in the answers. So yeah, the Schoology quiz is your homework, but you'll have to open the worksheet first to do the problem on the worksheet, and then you just type it in to the Schoology quiz. Okay? So it's like a worksheet, and when you're done with problems, you just type them in. So Dashiell, which would be number 1 off of the worksheet for today? And I'm going to be trying to figure out which formula we should use.
Auditorium has 20 seats on the first row.
20 in the first row. Okay?
24 seats on the second row.
24, row 2. I see what's happening. It's probably going up 4 each time, but in theory, they could be multiplying by something. So they tell me the third row?
28 seats on the third.
Ah, they're definitely doing what each time?
Adding by 4.
They're adding 4 each time. Do you get that tells me everything? It tells me it's arithmetic. The only thing left is, do they want to know how many total seats there are? Because that'd be S sub. Or do they want to know how many seats in row 17? What do they want?
Well, there are 30 rows of seats that they want to find, or how many seats are they want?
They want the sum of all the seats. They want S sub n. And for an arithmetic kind where they add each time, that's this one. I would seriously, totally write that out, and then just right above it, I would stick in all the numbers. Iris, tell me one of the numbers that you know. N, or U sub 1, or D. D is 4, because it goes up 4 each time. Good. So D is 4. I'm putting a 4 there. Nora, tell me one of the numbers you know.
U sub 1.
Is 20. They started with that, right? 20. If I just knew N, I could be done. Graham, what's N?
30.
All right, so 30. Can you guys verify, was it 30 rows? Okay. Now, if I just had a calculator, when you're all done, you type your answer into the Schoology quiz. When you're all done with the Schoology quiz, you hit submit. The idea? I'm not going to tell you the answer. I want you to get the answer. I'm totally fine with you checking with the kid next to you. That'd be fine. So why don't you get that answer and then we'll compare in a second. Everybody, use your calculator. Type it into your calculator, please, because when you're comparing with the other kid, these numbers are sometimes long and like hard to hear. And if you just hold up your calculator, you can be like, "Do you get this?" You can compare your calculator screens pretty easy. All right. That's the new stuff for today. Now you got work time. Come on up if you get stuck. I predict the hardest thing will be figuring out whether it's arithmetic or geometric. Is it adding each time or subtracting? Or the geometric kind where you're multiplying, sometimes you're multiplying by a decimal. Question? Yes, you may. All right, that's all I got for you for today.